Morning, everyone. My name is Lana Carlip, and I'm the Vice President of the Executive Committee of the Board of the NATO Association of Canada, as well as the Interim Executive Director of the Association in the absence of our President and CEO, Mr. Robert Baines. The NATO Association is a charitable, non-governmental organization dedicated to informing Canadians about the value of security and the importance of NATO. Most Canadians don't have to give a second thought about their peace and security. The NATO Association strives to remind our listeners of just that and how this is possible through Canada's collaborative alliance dedicated to maintaining mutual defense and peace. As part of Canada's contributions to maintaining peace, we connect with our allies, and today we are going to have a discussion about the Netherlands and NATO, diplomacy, defense, and the future of transatlantic cooperation, with Her Excellency Margriet Vonno. Taking us through the discussion will be Avani Singh, Hassan Ahmed, and Alexandre Delafosse, three key members of our team at the NATO Association of Canada. After some prepared questions, we will be opening the floor to questions from our live YouTube audience. So if you are watching, please start typing in any questions you may have, and we will address them as we go. Before I pass it off to Avani, Hassan, and Alexandre, I should remind you all to subscribe to our NATO Canada YouTube channel and to join our membership in supporting Canada's role in NATO and the rules-based international order. And with that, let's begin our discussion.
Thank you, Lana, for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our diplomatic speaker series, exploring Canada's relations with its NATO allies and partners in a constantly evolving global security environment. My name is Avani Singh, and I'm an engagement coordinator with the NATO Association of Canada.
My name is Alexandre. I'm an events coordinator with the NATO Association of Canada.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hassan Ahmed, and I am also an engagement coordinator with the NATO Association of Canada.
Today, we will be discussing the Netherlands' role in NATO. Before we get started, I'd like to give a brief history of the Netherlands' participation in NATO. On April 4th, 1949, the Netherlands became one of the 12 founding members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, hereby known as NATO, joining to help deter Soviet expansion and ensure collective defense in Europe and North America. From the very beginning, the Netherlands played an active role in shaping the alliance's structure and policies. During the Cold War, the Netherlands hosted NATO installations and contributed forces to the defense of Western Europe. Dutch troops were stationed in West Germany as part of NATO's forward defense posture, and the Netherlands supported NATO's nuclear sharing arrangements by hosting US tactical nuclear weapons under a dual key system. Following the end of the Cold War, the Netherlands continued to support NATO operations and transformation efforts. Dutch forces have participated in NATO missions in the Balkans, including Bosnia and Kosovo, Afghanistan with ISAF and Resolute support, and Iraq. The Netherlands has also contributed to NATO's deterrence and defense posture through its involvement in the Enhanced Forward Presence, or the EFP, in Lithuania, where it leads a multinational battle group. As a technologically advanced and globally engaged country, the Netherlands contributes to NATO's efforts to address emerging security threats, such as cyber warfare, hybrid threats, and disinformation. It also hosts NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence in The Hague and participates actively in NATO's innovation and capability development initiatives. In response to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the Netherlands has significantly increased defense spending to meet NATO's then 2%, now 5% GDP target, and is committed to reinforcing NATO's eastern flank, including through deployments to Romania, as well as support for Ukraine. Coming into our guest for today, Her Excellency Margriet Vonno has served as the ambassador of the Kingdom of Netherlands to Canada since August of 2024. Her posting reflects the deep historical and contemporary ties between the Netherlands and Canada, ties rooted in the liberation of the Netherlands during the Second World War and strengthened by shared values, close diplomatic cooperation, and a joint commitment to global peace and security. Ambassador Vonno brings over 3 decades of experience in international relations and public service. She has previously served as the ambassador to Singapore and Brunei, inspector of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and held senior roles in both foreign and domestic ministries. Her work consistently emphasizes sustainability, innovation, and inclusive diplomacy. A native of Kampen, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, which was a town liberated by Canadian forces, she now lives in Ottawa, where she enjoys gardening, the annual Tulip Festival, and promoting value-based collaboration between Canada and the Netherlands. Ambassador, we would like to invite you to begin with some opening remarks before we proceed to the questions.
Well, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure being here. And after almost a year in Canada, it's a good time to reflect a little bit about Canada and the Netherlands, and especially the Netherlands, Canada, and NATO. As you said, the Netherlands is one of the 12 founding members of NATO, and we're really very proud of that. We've been there from the very start. But only last June, the 24th and the 25th of June, we hosted our first ever NATO summit in the Netherlands. And boy, that was a big event. It was a unique opportunity to show our commitment to the treaty, to the people, to the alliance, because we think the alliance is now more important than ever. Also for myself, I may have taken my personal freedom for granted. I don't anymore. There's so much happening in the world. And I've had the privilege as the Dutch ambassador to honor a lot of fallen soldiers, Canadians who fell for the freedom of the Netherlands, who liberated my country. One of the events, I was at the National Field of Honor, Pointe-Claire in Montreal. And there I got from one of the participants this very special flag, because I asked, wow, can you see? It's a combination of the Dutch flag and the Canadian flag, and they are united in a way. And that's what I felt there, that there were so many soldiers who left their lives in the Netherlands, but whose families come often to the Netherlands, because what we have in the Netherlands is faces to graves. Of all the 7,600 soldiers who have fallen in the Netherlands, we know their names, we know their faces, and we connect to the family. And I think that's something which is so important, because sacrifices made by Canadians, British, Polish, and Americans in the Second World War are not forgotten. 80 years later, we still remember, and we are more grateful than ever. And that brings me to the present, where Ukraine is now facing a war that's very close by. And I feel that they are fighting not only for themselves, but for the whole democracy and European values. People are worried in Europe, in my country, and they look for NATO for protection and deterrence. And there's broad support in my country for NATO. There's broad support for the 5% that we're going to spend for our security and our freedom. I think during the NATO summit, we showed our unity and our resolve. And we are stepping up to the plate, and so is Canada. Defense spending is going up, industrial capacity is going up, and Ukraine will stay high on the agenda of NATO. Only this year, my country, the Netherlands, announced 4.4 billion euros in military and humanitarian support for Ukraine. And this week, we were the first ally to announce a 500 million euro support package for Ukraine under the new NATO mechanism. That's we buy US weapon systems for Ukraine. I think our support with F-16 fighter jets has been important as well. And what I truly believe in is a rule-based order. And I think together with Canada, we share the commitment to NATO, to Ukraine, to the rules-based international order, and to values together. So I'd like to finish off by talking about people, because I've stated a lot of numbers, defense, security, but in the end, it's all about people. It's about a fallen soldier that's remembered, who we honor, and we will follow in his footsteps and try to work together for a more peaceful world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for the introduction and for your opening remarks. We will now be going into the moderated questions. The Netherlands recently announced a 5% increase in defense spending, bringing it closer to NATO's 2% and now 5% GDP target. What priorities will this increase address, such as modernizing equipment, supporting Ukraine, or bolstering NATO's eastern flank? And how does the Netherlands balance this with domestic political debates on defense?
Thank you for this question. It's a very important one. Well, I told you we had a very successful NATO summit in The Hague. And there we agreed, all allies agreed, that we would step up together and raise spending to 5% of our GDP, 3.5% for military and 1.5% for anything involved, including infrastructure, which is important. We were such a proud host of the summit, and we were so proud of the commitments that were made and that the alliance is stronger than ever. What we will do with the money, we will work together with allies and partners to defend our borders, and like I said, our values as well. And we think it's fair that there's a more fair burden sharing in the alliance to bolster against the Russian aggression. And part of our increased spending will help develop and grow a more independent defense industry, like we see in Canada, we see in the Netherlands as well. We will modernize our weapons, and we will keep supporting Ukraine against the Russian aggression. Domestically, there's a big part of the Dutch who believe that helping Ukraine is necessary, not just because we want to help Ukraine, but it's necessary for our own security. Because the security and safety of Ukraine is interconnected to the European and Dutch security. And that's where we are focusing on. And I think there will be lots of challenges, positive challenges for our SMEs, small and medium-sized companies, I see, but also the bigger ones, to work together so that we can spend on our defense in our own countries as well.
Thank you so much for your answer. In line with discussing European security, we can move on to the next question. With Dutch forces actively contributing to NATO's enhanced forward presence in Lithuania, joint maritime security efforts, and playing a key role in coordinating aid to Ukraine, how will the additional defense funding shape the Netherlands' future role in NATO missions, particularly in the Baltic and North Atlantic regions?
Thank you for mentioning the Baltic and the eastern flank, because you are right. We're doing much, much more there than we used to do. In Lithuania, there's hundreds of Dutch troops stationed, and we've been there for a while, and we will stay there. We are also working together in Latvia with the Canadian contingent, with the fighter jets over there. So we take our role in the multinational battle group in Lithuania very seriously. We've also done a lot of exercises over there, readiness exercises. And we've done a lot of training and preparing exercises, which we've been doing also together with Germany over there. So we are very flexible and results-oriented in the Netherlands. So we also have targeted contributions, where I know that when the war started in Ukraine, we have found in the Czech Republic that there was still some ammunition left, which was quite ready for use. So we bought it from the Czech Republic and donated immediately to Ukraine. That was even before the systems were set up that we're working with now. So we try to see how can we act swiftly and how can we act together. And although I mentioned that I'm very proud of the Dutch defense industry and that we're going to spend our money partly over there, I think it's mostly a group effort. And we need to innovate more, and that's what we do in a broader coalition as well. But we are both ready in terms of money available, but also about awareness and support from the public.
Thank you for that, Ambassador. Turning from the Baltic to the North Sea, the Netherlands is at the heart of NATO's maritime operations in the North Sea, and it's a region that has become a critical theater for both deterrence and infrastructure security. Following the Nord Stream sabotage and increased Russian undersea activity, what steps is the Netherlands taking nationally and within NATO to harden and bolster up maritime infrastructure security? And do you feel there are gaps in NATO's planning that still need to be addressed in that theater?
I think you're rightly focusing on that theater because it is worrisome what's happening, especially with the Russian shadow fleet. Maybe we've been a little bit naive because we want open seas and open trades. But we are now working together with our allies and our G7 partners to protect our infrastructure security. We have witnessed many incidents with a more active Russian shadow fleet. They are trying to really sabotage our underwater infrastructure, like in mostly European seas, like the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. So what we've done at the national level, we've enhanced our naval patrols. We are having increased awareness, and we have improved coordination between our military, our intelligence, and our civilian infrastructure. Like our Coast Guard is not part of the military in the Netherlands, but they're now working much more closely together. And in the Baltic Sea, in the NATO level, we really upped our presence. We have multiple marine vessels who are part of the operation which is called Baltic Sentry. And we cooperate also closely with the EU on sanctions against the shadow fleet and people involved. I think we need more shared awareness and coordinated planning to counter underwater sabotage, because that's something quite new, and we realize it's here to stay. So that's an area where we're really stepping up our efforts and also enhancing our coordination with other ally members.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We're going to shift the focus of our conversation a little bit into innovation, sustainability, and climate security. The Netherlands has positioned itself as a leader in both defense innovation as well as sustainability. How will this increased defense budget be used to advance NATO-aligned initiatives such as Diana, AI-driven defense systems, or climate-resilient infrastructure? And do these go against one another?
Well, I love innovation. From the very start, when I was a toddler, I'd like to innovate and crash my bicycle and then learn by doing and learn from making mistakes. So I believe it's essential to better use knowledge to shorten innovation cycles and to scale up our production capacity, also of military equipment. I'm very happy that the Dutch Ministry of Defense is increasing investments in innovation. They really are. We have the Netherlands Defense Strategy for Industry and Innovation. This document highlights the focus on 5 key technology areas where our country excels: quantum, smart materials, space, intelligent systems, and sensors. So, our ministry is working with a network of research institutions, companies, startups, to build what we call a strong defense technological and industrial base. And that's what we also sometimes call the triple helix model, where we work with science, with governments, and with different companies to improve something, and everybody will be the better for it. In the NATO context also, we're strengthening our commitments through all phases. You are mentioning Diana, the accelerator, the NATO startup. We are very involved. We are also involved in the NATO Innovation Fund, the NIF, and that focuses on promising companies that want to bring innovation to the market. And we are involved in the NATO Science and Technology Association, where we have joint scientific research. A nice example I'd like to share with you is that the Dutch Ministry of Defense recently signed a prototyping contract with a Dutch innovator, Lobster Robotics, to launch their underwater seabed mapping drone. It's called the Scout, and it's a partnership that was made possible through Diana. And like we've been talking before, this is a new way of seeing things. So very, very important to us, as is AI. Everybody's discussing AI nowadays. But the Dutch government is also making a significant push into digital warfare. We are investing and we are expanding the use of drones and artificial intelligence across all our defense operations. And we have funding that supports the integration of AI into the military processes, like analysis of intelligence, scheduling of maintenance, operational planning. It's all interconnected now. What I'd like to add that we still want to do good, so energy is critical. And we are looking to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, also in the military. So we are increasing the diversity of energy sources in order to become more autonomous and more green. So our goal is to get 30% less dependent on fossil fuel in 2030. And we already use up to 20% biofuels for military road and ship transport. And we are also looking into the Air Force. We will take the next step by using 5% sustainable aviation fuel for all our military planes. It's not just Schiphol and KLM that are doing it. And we do have it as a priority, and it's driving innovation because people say, oh, people are willing to pay for that. So it's sustainable energy generation, storage for military bases, use of biofuels, and maybe that's something also for the Arctic. I've just recently visited the North, and their energy is also an issue. And we see a lot of opportunities for companies specializing in renewable energy, storage, smart grid technologies, and they are stepping up to the plate. So this is a long answer because there's so much happening. We are currently exploring multiple possibilities, also for multinational cooperation in the field of energy security. And I could go on, but then it might be boring. But this is something where a challenge comes with something good as well, I find. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for this response. Very much related to your previous response, where you've called the Dutch business community one of the most innovative in the world. As this innovation is intersecting with Dutch defense procurement priorities, from cyber to energy resilience to AI, are there any opportunities for Canadian-Dutch collaboration here or for more general learnings for NATO from the Netherlands? Well,
it's a resounding yes. I see many opportunities, and I see people already stepping up to the plate. We believe that a strong armed force needs to be underpinned by a strong and really innovative defense, industrial and technological base. And we've been working on that for decades already. We are really strong at cyber in the Netherlands in many respects. And maybe because we've been attacked from all sides, our businesses, our governments, so we are stepping up to the plate. We are very good at cybersecurity, at innovation, and also at flexibility. So we have a Netherlands defense strategy for industry and innovation. It starts this year, it's for 4 years, and it positions innovation as a strategic imperative. So it's something which is part of our stepping up the plate in the defense spending. Because there are so many hybrid threats. It's not just the old-fashioned war threats anymore. And that's why we work together. It was mentioned that I've worked at different ministries, and the Dutch Ministry of Defense and Economic Affairs, they work together on the quantum, the smart materials, the sensors, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is involved as well. So we try to sort of come up with innovation and use it on a small scale and see, does it work? We also are shortening our procurement processes and restructure them so that SMEs, smaller companies can join, because sometimes it's a lot of paperwork and we want to be more flexible so that we can really innovate and focus on what's happening on the ground. And this opens also doors for dual-use technologies, solutions that serve both military and civilian purposes. I think in the past too, there's been a lot of breakthroughs via the military that seeped into civilian life. And I see it with cyber, with autonomous systems, and more like that happening. Including, like I mentioned before, the energy resilience and the sustainability. They are key priorities for our country. We are a densely populated country, so we want more hybrid electric mobility, climate adaptive infrastructure. And as I mentioned before, the AI, we have a lot of AI-driven defense systems who are helping the men and women who are on the ground. And we even have an in-house AI platform that we have, but we also procure other stuff. I think on this, the Netherlands and Canada especially find each other. And I do see it because there's lots of collaboration on the new technologies like cyber and AI, and we have different strong points. We will be identifying new opportunities as well. I can't go into details, but I know we are really in close contact, and it's like you say, 1 and 1 is 3 if we work together. And both our defense budget and the defense budget of Canada has gone up. So there are opportunities and there are means to finance those opportunities. So in light of this, we really welcome the signing of the EU-Canada Security and Defense Partnership that was signed just before the NATO summit, because that helps us to really, well, start doing things. And we've started already. And we will continue in the coming years. And I'm very grateful for the support that we get from the Canadian side as well. And I would like to finish my remarks on this, that I'm really impressed with the average cyber soldiers that I've been meeting. And I mean with average in a good way, like there's hundreds of them. And they are really stepping up to the plate and connecting. So it's not just on the ministerial level that a lot is happening, but it's seeping through in bases and people learn from each other.
Well, thank you for that answer, focusing a bit more on the sustainability and innovation piece, but turning away from the business side of things. The Netherlands has a long history of land reclamation. The Dutch have been doing it since at least the 14th century. About 17% of the country, at least, is, currently reclaimed from sea or lakes. And so with that in mind, being a low-lying country with decades, if not centuries of experience in water management, climate resilience, how can the Netherlands help shape NATO's adaptation strategy to climate change? Are there specific climate security initiatives the Netherlands is advancing within NATO or with allied partners? And what can the rest of us learn from the unique Dutch experience?
I really like that question because I was born in a polder beneath sea level. So I found when I was traveling to Luxembourg for the first time that I was seeing mountains, but it was only, I think, 100 meters high. And I was already in awe. But what I've been doing is selling polders all over the world, because actually the Dutch technological engineering systems are amazing. I'm very proud of that. And it's also part of our culture. And I find it important to explain to you what I mean, because when you are in a low-level country, the dikes might break and then you drown or you lose everything. Then you have to work together, because every part of the dike has to be in good order, because the weakest point, the water will hammer and the force is amazing. And then everybody is having wet feet if they're lucky, or drowning if they're unlucky. And that's been part of our culture, that we always work and think as a group. You help your neighbor, and you also tell your neighbor, take care of your garden, because it's part of the community as well. So maybe that's why sometimes the Dutch tend to be a little bit blunt, but it's also that they stick together. And we strongly support NATO's climate and change and security action plan. And we contribute a lot to it by sharing knowledge on climate risk assessment, the resilient infrastructure, the civil-military cooperation in disaster response. We've been working with disasters all over the world when there's flooding. And we would like to commend Canada because we support the Climate Change and Security Center of Excellence in Montreal. The CCASCOE, I think the abbreviation is. I always stumble with words. And we really think it's great that Canada is taking the lead, and we have been a strong ally and helping both financial and with people involved there. I have a local example I found from the Netherlands. What are we doing actually? Because during the renovation at the Den Helder Marine Harbor, our biggest marine harbor in the Netherlands for the Navy, we have already accounted for a rise in sea levels. We've been prepared to live with the sea in a way, but we've upped our programs because we think it's going faster than we anticipated decades ago. And what we now also have is that we have a lot of infrastructure, which is actually floating. So it's more flexible with our lakes and rivers. And I think that will still be one of our strong points because we sort of have even a program. I've been a director at the Ministry of Infrastructure. My favorite program was Room for the River. The rivers in the Netherlands are not as large as the Ottawa River, but they can be pretty big after winter. And what we've done, we sort of made room, removed houses next to the riverbed so that they can flood. And then in summer, when they usually flood less, then there's beaches, there's infrastructure, we have festivals there, and everybody's happy because there's sort of income for the local people to sell foods or to have a dance party. No houses are flooded anymore, and it's more beautiful because we are at the end of rivers that come all the way from Switzerland. So we have all the flooding in the Netherlands, but luckily we're prepared to live with that and be part of the ecosystem. And I think we will keep being very active on this aspect because we're proud of our heritage, of our knowledge. And we also see that this is a global phenomenon. Everybody has to learn to live with climate change and with rising seawater levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. You served as ambassador to Singapore and Brunei for 5 years, where you emphasized sustainability, innovation, both topics that we touched on, and one that we haven't in cycling. How did your experience in Southeast Asia shape your understanding of strategic resilience and regional security? And do you see parallels for NATO or Canada-Netherlands cooperation today?
Well, thanks for mentioning the cycling in this as well. I would like to start with that because indeed I love to cycle. I'm Dutch, so the Dutch cycle to work. And actually now I very often cycle to events with other ambassadors. I have my orange electric Dutch bicycle here, and it gets much more traction than if you arrive by car. And it keeps me happy and healthy. And I've done the same in Singapore, although it's sometimes very sweaty if you are in Singapore. It's like in the midst of summer here in Ottawa, where I'm residing now. But what I've learned, I loved being in Asia. And one of the reasons that I'm now in Canada is that I really loved working with my Canadian colleagues in Singapore. There's a big presence of Canada in Singapore, and I've worked a lot with the Indo-Pacific. And Canada was also very active in the Indo-Pacific. The Dutch have an Indo-Pacific strategy. The Canadians as well. We have a European Indo-Pacific strategy. So we decided to work together. And it was work value-based. So we raised the rainbow flag together, but we also helped young female entrepreneurs together. And we tried to focus on the rule of law. So we did maybe the soft stuff, but I truly believe that in the end, it's very hard stuff because this is the foundation which you get also appreciations for a country and working together. I'm very proud of the fact that Netherlands now every year goes to the Shangri-La Defense Conference. It's a unique conference which is in June every year in Singapore. Canada has been part of that conference for many decades, but the Netherlands not. So I went one day to my minister and the PermSec, and I said, "You're missing out on opportunities, but this is the event where you can see everyone in Asia, very important European allies, but also Canada, US, some Latin American countries, everyone's there." So my minister met with the Canadian minister, and ever since, I've left already, couple of years, but they say, yes, we can't miss it. And there's still that close link. And I think that's sometimes it's difficult to see what have I done as an ambassador because you're just, a blip in time. But this is something which is really concrete and where you see that this is not just about systems, because I was selling it as a system. In the end, it's about people getting to know each other. And now that I'm here in Canada, I'm working with Global Affairs Canada a lot. And some of the people I work with are my good friends from Singapore who now have a home posting. So that's a bonus from the life, that you have friends that you can, if you're lucky, meet in another place, and then you don't feel like you're a stranger. But, I've had my first Thanksgiving with them here in October, and it was great, although I was just a newbie. Now, on Singapore, I would like to add too that Singapore, a small city-state, a little bit more than 5 million inhabitants, has a special link to the Netherlands. There was a Dutchman who was an advisor to the UN, who advised the then Prime Minister and the leader of Singapore, and they got along very well. So the Dutchman got some Dutch companies and other ones involved. So although you won't think of it, there's a huge connection. And it was also on innovation and defense industry. So here we go, it's always a small world. And very often you come back to topics that are in another part of the world, but are still meaningful if you change positions.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that response. Before becoming ambassador to Canada, you spent 2 years evaluating Dutch diplomatic missions worldwide. From that point, what patterns did you notice about the strengths or vulnerabilities of Dutch diplomacy in a shifting global security landscape?
That's a good question. I found it a tough job because you have to assess people, and who am I to think that you're good or bad or whatever. But I've tried to see patterns. And what I see is that a real good functioning embassy is a teamwork. It's always about team. It's like when you have a soccer game, you can have one goal hitter, but if you don't have the team and he doesn't play along, then you won't win. And it's the same what I find in diplomacy. So if you have a good team, you have like what we have here in Ottawa, local staff that's local. So that's from the country where you're privileged to work in. Like we have some very capable Canadian local staff who's worked on the Hill, who know a lot from the whole country. And we have that also in Vancouver and Toronto, where we have business consulates. And I really learn a lot by listening to them and asking them for advice. What I also find is that I'm a really proud and active member of the European Union. Now I have the privilege of having all member states and the EU Commission here, and we work a lot together, because even if you have the brief to sort of advance your own interests, it's sometimes much better to do it in a group, because then you're stronger, and in the end, it's best for your own national interest as well. So I'm a strong believer in the European Union. I'm really grateful that we are sticking together. Some people think that the European Union is weak. I find it really weird, because I find the European Union is like a family. And families are always very vocal internally to each other. So they might fight, they might scold to each other, but when the shit hits the fan, they will stick out for each other. And that's what we are. So, but it's very transparent, very open. The whole public in the European Union has an opinion and voices it, and you can hear it. As a Dutch ambassador and as an inspector, I find that the Dutch, if you come, don't say, oh, you must be a VIP because you're an ambassador. Say, oh, and what can you do? Show me. So they want the proof of the pudding. And that's in the eating. So I always try to listen to where can I make a difference. And what I've really liked so far in Canada, that I've had the privilege of going in the Northern Tour that Global Affairs Canada is organizing, where both on the climate change, defense, Indigenous people, everything came together. And I'm now trying to connect a lot of that information and have the two ministries even work better together. And that's really a privilege and something that I'm very glad at. Lastly, about my time as an inspector, I think it's very significant if people can laugh together, or if you can sometimes take yourself not too seriously. It's always a bad sign if everybody is really worried and only very solemn. So I always like to also look at the light side, and I did that by bringing a lot of Dutch cookies my first day. So people opened up eating sugar, the caramel waffles, maybe you know them, which are a great way to start a meeting. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those comments, Ambassador. It segues very nicely to our closing question in our moderated discussion. Going back to your personal philosophy, we saw on your LinkedIn page that your personal motto is kindness is no weakness, kindness makes you stronger. You certainly come off as a very kind person, but that's not a slogan you'll often hear or a motto you'll often hear in the realm of security and defense. Um, with the experience from your career, spanning over 3 decades in diplomacy, as someone who clearly values transparency, courage, kindness, and who leads by example, what advice would you offer to the next generation, and particularly to young women interested in entering the security and defense field?
Well, I really thank you for that question. I think it's important to pay it forward. And I very often try to give myself advice for 30 years ago and think, oh, you could have done that differently. What I would say to myself, step up to the plate, not just wait to be asked. Because in the beginning, I was very well raised and I was waiting to be asked, but you're not always asked. Just because you're waiting, people might think that you don't want, or you're too shy, or you're not properly up to the job. That's what I've learned to do, to ask. In the beginning, I asked, can I be part of this team? Or can I do this speech instead of you? And very often people said no. So it wasn't that it was a big success. But I've learned to keep asking because it's part of life. I think we all have been told no many, many times. From our parents when we were younger, but also from our bosses now at the work floor, or professors. And that's part of life. I've never taken it personally, because then I just was unlucky, but I've persevered, and that helped, and I keep asking. Now I very often also ask for advice or ask for feedback. What can I do better? And I know that I always have people around me who know much more than me, or much better at a special topic, and I'm very proud of that. So I never will say, like, I've done this. One of the reasons that I feel confident and that I do well now is that Janine, who's my NATO expert, helped me to prep. She could do a much better job than I can, but now I can be as the ambassador here. But I'm really privileged to work with people like that. So what my advice will be, to reiterate, don't be shy, you can just ask. No is an answer, and then you can ask another time or find another, and don't back off because somebody said no, because that might be the first thing that happens. And then you say, see, it doesn't work, I'll just wait to be asked. Also, show what you can. And what I like to do now is to open a door for people, I say. Because it's so difficult, especially if you're a young student now, to get a door opened, because there's so much competition and there's so many very qualified people around. And I try to open doors for people who sometimes, well, are not yet fluent in Dutch, or have been refugees, or are having a handicap. Because I'm very good at believing in my gut feeling. I know they can. They just have need somebody who opens the door and then show them. And that's what I mean, maybe with kindness, that you are aware of that and that you don't think of your own position, but of the others. And they will help you out. And I would like to finish with something very personal, but I feel like I have to share it because I've been very sick in Singapore. I've been open about it. It's no secret, but I almost passed away of breast cancer. And I'm still feeling, touch wood, very healthy after amazing doctors who helped me out. But the first verdict was quite negative. And then a lot of people came back to me and told me, oh, you've helped me there. And now I'm here. And that was actually something very special. It's like you're at your own funeral, but you're still there and people tell you nice stuff about yourself. And you feel like, wow, I've made a difference. And that was very often about very small stuff, like just saying hi to somebody or acknowledging the name of the driver or something that I thought, why did you even remember? And that's what now is my goal in life, to stay with that human touch. But being kind for me can also say that I say, well, you know, I think it's not working out. Maybe you should look for another position. You're unhappy. It's not working in the team. So it's not that being kind is saying what people want to hear, but being one-on-one, very honest. And I thank you for that question, because I'm a true believer in NATO. And I think it's very important that we focus on the geopolitical times and what we can do. But in the end, as I said before, it's all about people. And I believe that individually, you can always make a difference if you want to.
Thank you so much for your inputs and insights, Ambassador, especially for sharing your personal journey, which I'm sure inspired all of us on the call. I know it definitely helped inspire me. We will now open the floor to questions from our live audience. For those watching, please continue sharing your questions in the chat and we'll address as many as possible in the time remaining. I'll be passing it on to Alexandre to start us off.
Thank you, Avani. One of the first questions in the chat is the following. With increasing geopolitical tension, including in the Indo-Pacific, how is the Netherlands balancing its NATO commitments with growing EU defense cooperation?
A very interesting question. Thank you for that, because the Indo-Pacific is now part of our defense strategy. We will have a vessel at least every 2 years in the Indo-Pacific. We've been part of convoys already, and we focus a lot on connecting that. But I think we need both. For us, free seas are very important as maritime trading nations. And that goes globally, all over the world. There's important straits in Europe, also in the Indo-Pacific. The most difficult part is the staffing, because we are stepping up our financial commitments, but you need people to connect as well. And that's sometimes where we have to choose. This time it's in Europe, this time it's in the Indo-Pacific, where, for example, a marine vessel goes. But I believe that actually it's a bonus that both theaters are there for the Dutch. And we see also more intense collaboration between ASEAN countries and European Union countries.
All right, well, thank you for that. It's another question that we have here in the chat, similar to a question you've already touched upon, but it's the questioner's asking, how can I, as a young person, better engage with embassies and diplomats, both in Canada and the Netherlands, on issues of collective defense, innovation, and transatlantic security? Essentially, how can they get involved?
Oh, I'm really happy that so many young people want to be involved, because we want that and we need that. We sometimes have open events or lectures when somebody's coming, when we have a minister. So if people are interested, they can sign up. I'll check with Ott. I'm now checking with my colleague, maybe Ott, OTT at... Yeah, well, we'll send you a link that you can put under. So if people are interested, then you can sign up your name. And if we have a public event, we will let you know. And that's from movie screenings to sometimes lecture when a minister is around. We always try to do something transparent for the public as well, as we mentioned before. I know that we work from the diplomatic community also with a lot of think tanks, and like on Human Rights Day, I know that on the 10th of December, Human Rights Day, the EU countries will do something together with some local organizations. We've been working on that, and there's more events that's happening. It's sometimes difficult to see it because there's so much going on always. And if you don't know the website or what's happening, then you might miss stuff. So reach out. And what you can also do is sometimes you send your resume to an embassy. That's what a lot of Dutch do too. We have 2 internships here. That's only for Dutch nationals because they have to come. It's part of their curriculum. But we have, many dozens of applicants, and there's only one that we can accommodate every 6 months. But the other ones, sometimes we keep the resumes and we can say, maybe this is interested for you. So it's just trying to get to know there. And if people are interested, I'm on LinkedIn. And if you send me your ask to be linked, I will connect to you. And then you can directly send me a message.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sure the questioner appreciates that. Very thoughtful and thorough answer to this question. Clearly, there's ways to get involved if people want to do so. Well, thank you, Ambassador, for your time. Thank you to our audience for participating. I was wondering if you had any closing remarks before we hand the floor to Lana for her closing remarks.
Well, thank you for that. I have closing remarks in saying that it's really inspiring for me to see you as moderators, the new generation, young, smart, eager people. And I see it with the questions too. And I really think my generation needs that as well, because sometimes it can look gloomy with climate change and upheavals in the world. And then I look at you and I think, okay, we'll get there. There's a new generation stepping up to the plate. So thanks for making me feel good.
There it is. I thank you so much, Your Excellency. This was wonderful. I typically have a favorite question around these speaker series to the gentlemen who happen to be the ambassadors, because it's a very heavily male-dominated environment, as you well know. Whenever we take, those very famous pictures on stages of NATO summits and otherwise, we just go through the rows, and we were like, oh, there's one, and then there's another one. And so there's no wonder that topics such as, women in security and women in political science are dominating the stage these days. And they're very popular for our Canadian students and abroad as well. And this is actually a fun fact that I've always known about the Netherlands, and I want to highlight it, especially after our conversation with you and the road you've traveled about your fight with cancer. And I was on a front line of it with my mom very recently, and it's really an incredible heavy duty journey that women go through that only women, I feel, would understand. And so I want to say that women have ruled the Netherlands at one point for over 120 years. I think it was 123 years to be exact, until Queen Beatrice abdicated. And your Queen's Day had to be renamed to King's Day. And I believe, and that was 2013. And I think the next replacement for the king will be yet another queen. So I'm wondering if you could maybe comment on that, on how it feels for you to be a woman in this profession, but coming from a country that is very female-centric when it comes to leadership and otherwise, and what advice you might have for our future female leaders, our interns, and all the young ladies looking up to careered people like yourself going forward.
Well, thank you for that question. Indeed, I've had the privilege of working for several royals, mostly female, and I have my king and queen. She's originally from Argentina and also a very inspiring lady. And you are right, we are going to have a queen in the future. Our crown princess, Amalia, is a student now. And actually, she's also a volunteer student at the Ministry of Defense, because she will be very much involved in our defense as well. And I think it's pretty cool that she's doing that, because that wasn't done in the past by the female queens we had before. But there's something that's changing. And personally, first I thought that being female was really something that sucked for diplomacy, because all my first positions when I came as a young diplomat, people thought, oh, are you the new secretary? Because all my predecessors were gray elderly men. So it always took me at least 6 months to show that I was sort of capable. And then it went very well. But now as an ambassador, I think it's an advantage, because like you say, I have great colleagues, but most are male. So I always think I should be in the middle of the picture in my nice dress. And most people remember, oh, the Netherlands has been there, and some other countries. So it's actually now something which is nice to stand out, and then to use it also to make your position known. I've also learned, and that's my advice on the young ladies, I tried to be very business-like, male, with male suits and stuff. And then I thought, no, actually, this is not me. I like nice dresses, I like colors. So I've changed my appearance, and I felt more at ease with myself, and it works for me. So that's something which I've learned. Don't try to copy or become male. It's okay to be female in a male environment, and just be yourself, but don't sit in the corner of the room and don't ask. You know, because otherwise people might ignore you or be better. And sometimes it sucks, and then you're unlucky. And that might happen. I find that one of my best breaks have been lucky breaks. And sometimes I thought I'm going to get that job, and then the then boss left, and the new one thought I don't want her because she's linked to the old one. And there you go, and you have to find another opportunity. Like I said before, stay close to yourself, believe in yourself, voice what you want, and keep trying. That's my best advice. And never give up.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you for that. Staying true to yourself is definitely a quality that is essential for leadership roles, especially I find through life generally. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us today, for giving us a little slice of your very busy schedule. Thank you to Alexandre, Hassan, and Avani for leading us through this very important and interesting discussion and coming up with those awesome questions right on the ball, really what's at stake and what's important today for Netherlands-Canada NATO relationship. I thank you all very much for this discussion. Your Excellency, so you know, one of the reasons these are taped is because they are thoroughly shared on our end as well with future interns and sometimes schools and otherwise who want to learn more firsthand experience. And so this is a great part to our archives. Thank you very much for all the knowledge and information you've shared with us today. We very much value our relationship with the Netherlands. We have much in common with you, including the monarchies above our heads. And I hope to be in a room with you sometime soon once again. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of everyone at the NATO Association of Canada.
Thank you also on behalf of my team. It was really nice working with you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, everyone, good job. The live is now down.
Are we offline?